Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Speak English Daily. I'm Emma, and I am so glad you are here. Before we start, I want to tell you something. Something I learned the hard way on a Friday night in a flooded kitchen. Sometimes people ask me, what is the hardest thing about living with someone else? I used to say the chores. Who cooks, who cleans, who takes out the trash. But now I have a different answer. The hardest thing is saying how you actually feel. Not the polite version, not the version that protects everyone from worry, the real version. The one that takes a breath to say, the one that sometimes cracks a little at the edges. Not, I'm fine, not, everything is okay. The real answer, the true one. Today, I want to tell you about a Friday night. A Friday that started normally and then very quickly stopped being normal. Things can change very fast, from quiet evening to flooded kitchen, from I'm fine to I really wasn't. Tonight, I take you through all of it. My kitchen flooded. Not a little, a lot. My housemate didn't answer his phone, the Wi-Fi went out, and there was a knock at the door at 9 o'clock at night. But by the end of that night, I had learned something important. Not about plumbing, about myself. Shadow me today. Say the words at the same time. Don't just listen. Listening is passive. Speaking, that changes your brain. Say every sentence with me. Feel the words in your mouth. Your English learns from your speaking, not just your ears. Out loud, your mouth and your brain together. Imagine this is your Friday night, your kitchen, your feelings, your story. Let's go. Friday night is waiting, and so is a kitchen that does not yet know that it is about to flood. The week is starting. The kitchen is waiting. Before the story, let's warm up. Today, you will hear two kinds of English. The first, home life English, the everyday words for living with other people. The second, feelings English, the words for saying how you actually feel. Not the polite version, the real version. Say these with me, out loud, same time. Home life. Could you do the dishes tonight? The sink is blocked. There's a leak under the kitchen sink. I need to call the landlord. We're running low on dish soap. Can we talk about the chores? Feelings. I'm fine, but sometimes that's not true. I've had a difficult week. I feel overwhelmed. I'm carrying a lot right now. I just needed to say that out loud. I feel better now that I've told you. Notice something? The home life phrases, practical, about the house. The feelings phrases, personal, about the inside. Today's story has both, a flooded kitchen and a heart that needed to be heard. Both are important. Both are real English. Let's start the story. At 8:47 on a Friday night, I was standing in my kitchen with water around my feet. But let me go back, because beginnings matter. And this story's beginning is not a flooded kitchen. It's a week that sat on my shoulders, and a word I kept saying, fine. 3 hours earlier, I thought I was going to have a quiet night. It had been a long week, the kind that sits on your shoulders, the kind where everything takes more energy than it should. You do the same things, but they feel heavier. Not a terrible week, just long. I teach English at the community center. I love this work. Most days it gives me more energy than it takes, but not this week. This week it just took. This week, 3 of my students were absent. My lesson plan didn't work the way I planned. I had a meeting that went too long, and then I had to redo work I thought was already finished. Small things, each one small. Each one alone, fine, but together they add up. I came home at 6 o'clock. The apartment was quiet. Mark wasn't home yet. Mark is my housemate. We found this apartment through a mutual friend. We moved in 6 weeks later, and now it's been almost 2 years. Long enough to have a rhythm. Long enough to know each other's habits. Long enough, apparently, to stop saying the real thing. He's easy to live with. He does his dishes, he pays rent on time, he doesn't play music too loud. We share the chores, cooking, cleaning, taking out the trash. Usually it works well. He came home around 6:30. He looked at me. Mark looks at you when he's paying attention, not over his phone, not at the door, at you. You seem quiet. Everything okay? I looked up from the couch. I'm fine, just tired. He nodded. This is something I noticed about Mark early on. He doesn't push. He asks once, he accepts the answer, even when the answer is not quite true. Long day? Long week. Yeah, I can tell. He went into his room to change. I heard him moving around, the sound of his closet door, drawers opening. Normal apartment sounds, the soundtrack of living with someone else. I wasn't fine. I want to be honest with you about this because I think a lot of people say I'm fine when they are not fine. Not lying exactly, just not telling the whole truth. Because the whole truth feels like too much, or you don't want to burden someone, or you're not even sure yourself what the whole truth is. Not in a serious way. If you had looked at my life from the outside, everything was fine. Apartment, job, housemate, friends. But from the inside, something was wrong. Not broken, just pressured, like a pipe that drips before it bursts. No emergency, no crisis, just not fine. I felt overwhelmed and frustrated and a little lonely, even though Mark was right there in the next room. You can feel lonely in a full apartment. I know this now. But I didn't say any of that. I said, I'm fine. Because it was easier. This is the honest answer. Not because I didn't trust him, not because he wouldn't listen, because starting is the hard part. Because when you're overwhelmed, explaining why you're overwhelmed can feel like more work than just carrying it. Because I didn't know how to start. Because I thought, I'll deal with it myself. Mark came back to the kitchen. I'm going to meet some friends tonight. You want to come? No thanks, I just want a quiet night. Okay, text me if you need anything. I smiled. I won't. 3 hours later, I would remember those words. Text me if you need anything. I won't. Famous last words. After Mark left, I had the apartment to myself. I stood in the hallway for a moment. I had the apartment to myself. Standing, listening to the quiet. I stood in the hallway for a moment. Shared apartments have a particular silence when the other person leaves. Not empty. Shared apartments have a particular silence when the other person leaves. The time when they're out and the space is yours. Not better than when they're part of living with someone. Different. The time when they're out and your own rhythm is yours. For a few minutes, better than when they're home. Quiet. Just my own space. Different. My own pace. Quieter. I changed into comfortable clothes. For a few minutes, is a ritual. It felt good. The moment I get home and change out of work clothes, my own pace. Something releases. I changed into professional version of me goes into the closet. Is a ritual. The actual me. The moment I get home and change out of work clothes, sweater, something releases. The uniform of a quiet Friday night at home goes into the closet. I started making pasta. The actual me. Pasta is my Friday night old sweatpants, a fast sweater, reliable, no shoes, satisfying. The uniform. The food of a quiet equivalent Friday of putting on comfortable clothes. I started making pasta, garlic, pasta and olive oil. Is my Friday night that takes default. 15 minutes and fast, like comfort, reliable. While the water boiled, I cleaned up the kitchen a little. Equivalent I put the dishes away from the drying rack. I wiped down the counter. Pasta. I noticed garlic we were running low on dish soap. I made a mental note. That takes 15 minutes and tastes the kind of small like household things that fill a quiet While evening. The water boiled, these I cleaned up the kitchen don't feel a little. Like chores I when you're in the dishes right mood. Away from the drying like rack. Taking care of I something. Wiped down the counter. Like maintenance. I noticed we were like running belonging low on dish somewhere. Soap. I made a mental note. The things you do without Buy thinking. More. The things that make a small household things that fill a quiet evening. The pasta was ready. These tasks I left it on the stove for a few minutes when you're in the right mood. I wasn't hungry yet. They feel I took like out the trash, taking care of getting something. Full. I started a load of laundry, and like then, belonging finally, somewhere. I sat on the sofa. The things you do I pulled without the blanket thinking. Over my legs. The things that I had a glass of water on the table. Maintained. The apartment was warm. The pasta was ready outside. I left it on the stove for a few minutes. I remember thinking I wasn't hungry yet. This is nice. I took out the trash. This is exactly what I needed. I started a load of laundry I'd seen before, and a show I didn't need to follow closely. I sat on the sofa, warm and familiar. I pulled the blanket over my chest. Started I had a glass of water on the table. This is what a quiet evening at home does. Warm. Not everything outside, but something quiet. It doesn't fix anything. I remember but thinking, it puts a little distance between you and whatever was weighing on you. This is exactly what I needed. Until the long week fading into the background. Seen before. A show I was going to follow closely. Something warm drip and familiar. Just one drop. The tightness in my chest in the kitchen started to ease a little. I heard it from the kitchen. This is what a quiet evening at home does. I didn't think much of it. Not everything, but a minute passed. Something. It doesn't fix anything, but it puts a little pause distance on the TV. Between you and whatever was weighing on you. I looked under the sink until a small puddle on the cabinet into the background. Not dramatic. Maybe I was going to be fine after all. I checked the pipes. Drip. Damp, a little dripping. Just one drop. I tightened one of the connections by hand in the kitchen. It seemed to slow down. I heard it from the kitchen. Big, just a small, one drop, dark, wet patch. I didn't think much of it. Oh, great. A minute passed. I got a towel. I put it down. Drip. I pressed it against the wet wood. I pressed pause on the TV. Nothing obvious. I went to the kitchen. Just a little damp. I looked under the sink. Probably fine. A small puddle I say on the cabinet floor. About pipes. Not dramatic. About feelings. Just wet. I went back to the sofa. I checked the pipes. I pressed play. Damp, a little
10
dripping.
minutes later.
I tightened one of the connections
Crash.
by hand. It seemed to slow down. Not big, just a small, dark, wet patch. Oh, great. I got a towel. I put it down. I pressed it against the wet wood. I checked the pipes. Nothing obvious, just a little damp. Probably fine. This phrase, I say it too much. About pipes, about feelings. I went back to the sofa. I pressed play. 10 minutes later, crash. I ran to the kitchen, running in socks on a kitchen floor. My socks got wet immediately. That specific horrible feeling, cold, wet socks on a kitchen floor. The cabinet door under the sink had burst open. Water was coming out fast, not dripping, flowing, spreading across the kitchen floor, reaching the edge of the rug. Okay, think. I am a person who can handle things. I have traveled alone, I have moved cities, I have dealt with difficult students and broken schedules. But standing in a flooded kitchen at 9 p.m. on a Friday, my brain went very quiet. The useful kind of quiet. Just next step. What is the next step? I grabbed towels from the bathroom. 3 towels. I put them down on the floor. I pressed them with my foot. They soaked through in about 40 seconds. This was not going to work. I grabbed the bucket we use for mopping. Orange bucket. Lives under the kitchen sink. I had never needed it for this. I put it under the pipe. Water was still coming. I needed to turn it off. There had to be a shutoff valve somewhere. I had never needed to find it before, and I had no idea where it was. I grabbed my phone. I searched. The Wi-Fi was gone. I looked at the screen. No connection. I tried again. Nothing. Of course the Wi-Fi was out. I switched to mobile data. 2 bars. Barely enough. I typed, "How to shut off water, apartment, kitchen." It loaded slowly, painfully slowly. I found a video. It started to play. How to find the water shutoff valve in your apartment. Useful, very helpful timing. It stopped. Buffering. Water was still coming. The bucket was filling fast. I called Mark. I pressed his name in my contacts. My hands were wet. The phone was slippery. 4 rings. Voicemail. "Hey, this is Mark. Leave a message." "Mark, your kitchen is flooding. Please call me." I poured out the bucket into the sink. I put it back. I grabbed more towels. I called Mark again. And again. Voicemail. I looked around the kitchen. Water on the floor, wet towels, bucket half full again. The pasta pot still on the stove. The kitchen smelled like damp wood. I didn't know what to do. This feeling, I don't talk about it much. The feeling of not knowing. I'm used to knowing, or at least pretending. I'm fine. I've got it. I'll figure it out. But standing in that kitchen, I genuinely did not know, and that was uncomfortable. I had lived in apartments my whole life. I had dealt with small problems, a stuck window, a loose door handle, but this was different. I moved the laundry basket from beside the sink. I looked at everything in that cabinet. Dish soap, cleaning spray, trash bags, a pair of rubber gloves I had never once used. No valve, no label. I moved the dish soap, the cleaning supplies. I opened every cabinet trying to find what? A valve? A label? Then there was a sound. Not water. Knock, knock, knock. I stood very still. Water still ran into the bucket. I could hear it. 9 o'clock. No one I was expecting. I stood very still. The water kept running into the bucket. Knock, knock. I dried my hands on my jeans. I walked to the door. I looked through the peephole. My heart was going a little fast, not scared, just alert. 9 p.m., not expecting anyone. A woman, maybe 55 or 60, short hair, dark coat. She was looking at the door with a patient expression. Not angry, not threatening, just waiting. I opened the door a few inches. The chain was still on. "Hi," she spoke first. "I'm so sorry to bother you. I live downstairs, apartment 4B. I waited. "I think there's water coming through my ceiling." I closed my eyes for 1 second. Of course. My kitchen floor was her ceiling. The water wasn't just staying in my apartment, it was going down, through the floor, into her home. I opened the door all the way. She looked at the water, the towels, me. She said nothing about any of it. "I'm so sorry. I have a leak under my kitchen sink. I can't find the shutoff valve. I don't know where it is." This surprised me. If water had been coming through my ceiling, I think I would have been angrier than she was. She was just calm, problem-focused. Let's deal with this. "Okay, can I come in and take a look?" "Yes, please." She came inside. She moved like someone who had been in a lot of apartments. Comfortable, practical. She went straight to where the problem was. No hesitation. She saw the kitchen, the towels, the bucket, the water. She didn't say anything about the mess. She just went straight to the cabinet under the sink. She looked for about 5 seconds. The kind of 5 seconds where someone knows what they are doing. Calm, focused, no wasted movement. "It's not under here." She stood up and looked around the kitchen. "Sometimes it's in a closet or near the water heater. Where is your water heater?" "The hall closet." We went to the hall closet together. A small closet, full of the usual things. Mop, umbrellas, old bags, the things that collect in any shared apartment. I moved a mop and 2 umbrellas. Behind them, a small metal door. She opened it. Pipes, valves, a small red handle. "That's it," she said. "Turn it clockwise." I turned it. The sound of water stopped. I actually said, "Oh, thank God," out loud, to the pipes. Just like that. We stood in the hallway for a moment. The apartment was suddenly very quiet. "Thank you," I said, and then again, "Thank you so much." She smiled. The same patient smile from the hallway, not forcing anything, just, "I'm here, take the time you need. I'm Susan, by the way." "Emma." We shook hands in the hallway, over a mop. This is how I met my neighbor. Not by the mailboxes, not in the elevator, in my kitchen with wet socks over a mop. Some introductions are very normal, and some are not. We went back to the kitchen. I looked at it properly now that the water had stopped. Towels on the floor, the bucket full, the cabinet under the sink dark with water damage, the pasta pot still on the stove, cold. Susan stood in the doorway. She looked at me, not the kitchen. Are you okay? I opened my mouth. The words were already there, assembled, ready. 2 syllables, automatic, the safe answer. I was about to say, I'm fine. I stopped. I stood in my wet kitchen. The water was off, the immediate crisis was over, but I was still standing there. Wet socks, wet kitchen, tired face. And something inside me was also wet, saturated, ready to let go. A woman I had met 4 minutes ago was looking at me kindly, and something stopped the usual answer. Not, I'm fine. Not, I'm okay. Actually, I'm not. The words came out small, like I wasn't sure I had permission to say them. Susan didn't look surprised. She just nodded once and waited. It's not just the kitchen, I said. I've had a really difficult week, and I keep telling everyone I'm fine, and I'm just not. My voice cracked a little at the end. Not dramatically, just the kind of tired that lives behind your eyes when you have been holding something for too long. I was embarrassed. Not because of the kitchen, because of the words. Crying in front of someone you met 11 minutes ago, in your wet kitchen, in your socks. Not exactly dignified. I had just met this woman. She had come upstairs because water was ruining her ceiling, not to hear about my difficult week. I'm sorry, I said. You didn't come here for this. Susan shook her head. Don't apologize. Sit down. She pulled out a kitchen chair, like it was her kitchen, or like it didn't matter whose kitchen it was. What mattered was sit down. I sat down. She sat across from me. She didn't try to fix anything. She didn't offer advice. She just looked at me and said, "Tell me." She said it simply, without pressure, as if it were the most normal thing in the world to sit in a stranger's kitchen and listen. Tell me. So I did. I talked for maybe 10 minutes. I told her about the week, about coming home with a full head and an empty tank, about the reflex to say, I'm fine, about Mark asking and me answering wrong, about the lessons that didn't go well, about feeling like I was behind on everything, about coming home and feeling overwhelmed even in my own apartment. I feel like I'm carrying a lot, I said, and I don't always know how to put it down. And when Mark asked if I was okay earlier tonight, I said I was fine because it was easier. But I wasn't fine. And now my kitchen is flooded, so I laughed a little. Good Friday. Susan smiled. I know that feeling, she said, the weight of a hard week and the reflex to say, everything is fine, even when it clearly isn't. It is easier, I said. Sometimes, she said, but easier isn't always better. I looked at the kitchen, the mess, the wet floor, the cold pasta. Susan looked at the pot on the stove. Did you even get to eat? No, I said. That was supposed to be dinner. I feel better just saying it, I told her, even to a stranger. I paused. Sorry, that came out wrong. She laughed. No, I understand. Sometimes strangers are easier. You don't have history with them. You don't worry about what they'll think. You just say it. She was right. I had been carrying that week around all day. A week, actually. And in 5 minutes of talking to Susan, Something had shifted. Not solved, not fixed, just lighter. This is what I want you to hear. Talking does not always fix things. The week was still difficult. The kitchen was still flooded. But lighter. That is the word. And lighter matters. Then my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Mark. I answered immediately. Emma? I just got your voicemail. What's going on? The kitchen is flooded. What? There was a leak under the sink. It's stopped now, but there's water everywhere, and the cabinet is damaged. I need to call the landlord. Silence for a moment. I'm coming home. Mark, you don't have to. I'm coming home. Give me 20 minutes. He hung up. I put the phone in my pocket. I looked at Susan. She was already standing. She gave me a small nod. Go, handle it. My housemate is coming back. Good, she said. I should go check on my ceiling. Oh, I'm so sorry about your apartment. Don't worry, it looked manageable. I'll let you know. She stood up. She looked at me one more time. You okay? Truly? I thought about it for a real second. Better than I was an hour ago. Good answer, she said. She left. I stood in the kitchen alone. I called the landlord. Voicemail. I left a message explaining the leak. I texted as well with the details. Then I started to clean up. I moved the wet towels to the bathtub. I emptied the bucket. I put down dry towels. I moved things that were wet back onto counters to dry. This is what you do. When something goes wrong at home, you don't wait for someone to come save you. You deal with what you can, and you ask for help with the rest. This is living with another person. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up. You assess, you deal with what you can, you wait for help with the rest. Mark arrived 22 minutes later. I heard his key in the door. The specific sound of Mark coming home. I had heard it 100 times. This time, it felt like relief. He came through the door fast, still in his jacket. He could smell the damp from the hallway. He followed it to the kitchen. He stopped when he saw the kitchen. Okay, he said. Okay. He didn't say it was bad. He just assessed. This is something I appreciate about Mark. He doesn't dramatize. He doesn't panic. He looks at the situation. He decides what needs to happen. He starts doing it. He went to the sink and looked underneath. He tested the water, still off. He looked at the cabinet wood. We need a plumber tonight or first thing tomorrow. I called the landlord. No answer. I'll text him too. He got his phone out. Then he looked at me. Where were you when this started? On the sofa, watching TV. Did you hear anything before the crash? Just dripping. I thought it would be fine. He nodded. Then, quietly, why didn't you call me sooner? I felt something sharp in my chest. I called you twice. My phone was on silent. I know, I'm sorry. But I mean, before tonight. He was looking at me carefully. You've seemed off all week, I noticed, and you kept saying you were fine. I didn't answer right away. Because I thought I was handling it. Were you? I looked at the kitchen. Water on the floor, wet towels, cold pasta on the stove. Not really. Mark's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. The landlord, he said. He sent us an emergency repair number. Mark called immediately. The plumbers arrived at 10:30. I was relieved to see them. Two people, professional, quiet. A flooded kitchen on a Friday night, routine. For me, it was a crisis. For them, Tuesday. They fixed the pipe under the sink. They assessed the water damage. They said a specialist would need to look at the cabinet wood, but the leak was sealed, the water was off. No more immediate danger. Mark and I cleaned while they worked, moving around each other without needing to say much. This is one of the things that works living with Mark. When there's something to do, we do it. No one waits for the other to start. We didn't talk much. We just moved around each other in the small kitchen, passing towels, moving things, wiping down. The tension between us was quiet. Not angry, just something left unsaid. We both knew the kitchen was not the whole story. By 11:15, the plumbers were gone. I stood in the kitchen. Mark stood next to me. We looked at it together. It was a mess, but it was a manageable mess. A mess with a plan. A specialist coming, a landlord informed, water off, pipe fixed. Manageable. The kitchen was cleaned up as well as we could manage. Wet towels in the bathtub, cabinet open to dry, a note on the counter for the specialist tomorrow. Mark made tea. I sat at the kitchen table. He brought 2 cups. He sat across from me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The kitchen clock, the sound of the fan on the cabinet, the city outside. Then Mark. Then he said, "This isn't only about tonight, is it?" I looked at my tea. Hot, still steaming. There is something about tea in a difficult moment. It gives you something to look at that isn't the person. Time to find the words. No. He waited. Mark does not fill silence with noise. He lets things breathe. I wrapped my hands around the mug. 2 mugs of tea on a damaged kitchen table. 2 people who live together, actually talking. We did this a lot when we first moved in, the getting to know you stage, when you sit in the kitchen and learn who the other person is. Somewhere along the way, we stopped. Not because we stopped caring, just because life. I've been overwhelmed for a while, but this week was worse. I feel like I'm not making progress on things that matter to me. Work is fine, life is fine, but fine doesn't always mean good. He was listening, and I kept it to myself because I thought, I'll figure it out. I don't want to complain. Everyone has hard weeks. But you were carrying it alone, he said. Yeah. And it was getting heavier? Yeah. He looked at the kitchen. Kind of like the drip, he said. I looked at him. He gestured at the cabinet. Small thing, unaddressed, gets bigger. I hadn't thought of it that way, but he was right. You know you can tell me when things are hard, he said. We live together. That's what that means. I know. Pause. I think I forgot. He didn't say, it's okay. He didn't say, don't worry about it. He just nodded once, like, I hear you, which was exactly what I needed. We sat there for a while, not rushing anything. The cabinet was open. The notes for the specialist were on the counter. The plumbers were gone. And somehow it felt okay. Not perfect. Okay. Okay was enough. Drinking tea in a damp kitchen, past midnight, neither of us in a hurry to move. We thought we were done for the night. Mark had gone to bed. I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, ready to finally sleep. Then, knock, knock. I froze. 2:13 a.m.? In the history of good times to knock on someone's door, this was not among them. I went to the door. I looked through the peephole. Susan, holding something. I opened the door. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I know it's late. Is there more water?" "No, no. The ceiling is dry." She held up what she was carrying. A plate, covered in foil. "I made too much pie earlier, apple pie. You never got to eat dinner. I could hear the plumber up here." I stared at the plate. A real homemade pie on a real china plate, covered in foil, warm through the foil. This woman. I didn't know what to say. I called to Mark. "Mark, come to the door." He shuffled out, eyes half closed, hair messy. He saw Susan. He saw the plate. "Is that pie?" "Apple," Susan said. "Come in," I said. And so, at 2 in the morning, I want you to picture this, a kitchen at 2 in the morning. Cabinets still open, dry towels on the floor, a specialist's note on the counter, and 3 adults eating apple pie off paper towels. Nothing was completely fixed. The kitchen was still damaged. The specialist was still coming. My difficult week was still real. But something had shifted. I started laughing. Not because it was funny, just because it was absurd and warm and unexpected. Susan laughed too, then Mark. We sat there until almost 3. Susan told us about the building, who had lived there, what the old neighbors were like, stories about people we would never meet, lives we would only ever know as stories. It was unexpectedly lovely. Mark told her about the time the radiator broke in January. I told her about the pasta that got cold. By the time Susan left, the apartment was quiet. Mark had gone back to his room. The kitchen was as clean as it was going to get tonight. I felt something I hadn't felt all week, like I could breathe again. Saturday morning. The first thing I noticed, my body felt different. Still tired, still aware of everything from the night before, but lighter, like something had been set down. Gentle yellow light came through the kitchen window, the last warmth of August. I came into the kitchen, and Mark was already up. He was in the same clothes as last night. I don't think he had slept much either. He was making coffee at the counter. The kitchen smelled like coffee and damp wood. The cabinet was still open. The specialist was coming at noon. Mark heard me come in. He turned. "How are you?" I stood there. For 1 second, the old reflex came. "I'm fine." I stopped. Tired. A little embarrassed, but better. Mark smiled. "That's a much better answer." He handed me a coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. Susan, 4B. A text from Susan. "Ceiling is completely dry. Don't worry. And thanks for the late night company." I showed it to Mark. He laughed. A real laugh. The first real laugh of the morning. It was a Saturday. Not the one I had planned. Something better than the one I had planned. The laundry that started last night? I finished it. The dishes from before the flood? Done. The specialist note? Ready. Small tasks. ordinary tasks, but they felt different today. Not like chores, like restoration, bringing things back to normal, one small thing at a time. The week I had been carrying, it was still there. Nothing had been magically resolved. The work was still waiting. The kitchen needed a specialist. The cabinet needed replacing. But the feeling in my chest was different, lighter, because I had said it out loud, first to a stranger, then to Mark. And the weight had not disappeared, but shifted, like setting down a bag you've been carrying for too long. You're still tired, but your arms feel different. Later that morning, Mark and I went to the hardware store. I like hardware stores. There is something reassuring about them. Everything has a function. Everything has a place. Cleaning supplies here, tools over there. Unlike feelings, which are much less organized. We needed new towels to replace the ruined ones, some cleaning supplies, a new cabinet door hinge. We walked through the store slowly, picking things up, reading labels, normal Saturday morning things. On the way home, we stopped for breakfast, a diner 2 blocks from our building. We'd walked past it 100 times. We'd never been in. Eggs and toast for me, pancakes for Mark. Coffee that was too strong, but we drank it anyway. We sat there for almost an hour. Nobody rushed it. This was the thing that had been missing, maybe. Not time, not space, just sitting together without an agenda. We had been living the same schedule for 2 years, but somewhere along the way, we stopped doing this, stopped sitting down and just being in the same place. Maybe it takes something unexpected to remind you. We talked, really talked, and I noticed how different it felt from the beginning of the week when I was keeping everything in. Talking is work, but it is also release, like opening a window in a room that has been closed too long. Not about the kitchen, about things we hadn't talked about in a while. Work, plans, things we wanted to do before the year ended. Small things, but ours. The specialist came at noon. He assessed the cabinet wood, not as bad as it looked, treatable, not structural. He made his notes. He would come back Monday to repair. Susan knocked on our door at 3. She just wanted to check in. We stood in the doorway and talked for 10 minutes about the building, about the neighborhood, about the apple pie recipe. Mark asked for it. She promised to write it down. By evening, the kitchen was clean. I mean, as clean as it could be. The cabinet was still open, drying. There would be repair work Monday, and then repainting, and then eventually it would look like it did before. The floors were dry, the counters were clear, new towels were on the rack, the dish soap was replaced, the laundry was done, the trash was taken out. Normal things. Restored. I stood at the kitchen window. The street below was quiet. A Saturday late afternoon. Some people walking, a dog, a cyclist, everyone going somewhere or coming back. The sun was low. I used to think home was the place where nothing went wrong, where everything stays clean, where you always feel like yourself. I think I was confusing home with somewhere else. Home is where you show up as you actually are, tired, overwhelmed, with wet socks on a kitchen floor. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe home is the place where things do go wrong, where a pipe bursts on a Friday night, where you say I'm fine and mean I'm not, where someone notices anyway, where a neighbor brings pie at 2 in the morning, where you have tea and a wet kitchen and talk until midnight. And you don't have to handle it alone. That is home. Not perfect. Home. Mark called from the living room. Emma, you okay? I looked at the kitchen. Clean counter, new dish towel, open cabinet but drying. Yeah. Pause. Actually, I'm good. And this time, I meant it. Not performing it, not offering it as a way to end the conversation, just reporting how I actually felt. Good. It is a very small word, and it was completely true. Let's practice. Say these with me, out loud. Shadow me. Home life. Living with others. Who's cooking tonight? Could you do the dishes later? We're running low on dish soap. I'll take out the trash. There's a leak under the kitchen sink. I need to call the landlord. Can we talk about how we split the chores? Feelings. Saying what you actually mean. I'm fine. Sometimes true, sometimes not. I've had a difficult week. I feel overwhelmed. I'm carrying a lot right now. I don't know how to put it into words. I just needed to say that out loud. I feel better now that I've said it. Asking and listening. Are you okay? Truly? You seem quiet. Everything all right? I noticed you've been off this week. You don't have to handle it alone. I'm here. Take your time. I just want you to know I'm listening. Notice the connection. Home life is the outside. Feelings are the inside, but they live in the same place. Your home is where you feel the most, and the people you live with, they notice. The English for both is simple. The courage to use it, that takes practice. Today, you practiced. Your turn. Think about your home, the people you live with or have lived with. Tell me one thing about home life, a chore you do, a problem you had, a routine you share. Start with, at home I usually, or one thing I do every week is. Good. Now, how are you really? Not the polite answer, the true one. Try one of these. This week, I feel. Right now, I'm carrying. Something I haven't said out loud is. That was real English about your real life. Saying the true thing, that is the hardest skill. And today, you practiced it. Tonight, we lived a full Friday together. A quiet apartment, a dripping sound, a crash, water on the floor, a phone that didn't answer, a knock at the door at 9 p.m., a neighbor named Susan who knew where the valve was, a conversation in a wet kitchen, a housemate who came home and sat with me, tea at midnight, pie at 2 a.m., and a Saturday morning that felt lighter. All of it in English. All of it real. Not the version where everything goes smoothly, the real version, the kind that happens on actual Fridays. Home life is not just chores and repairs. It is not just who cooks, who cleans, who takes out the trash. It is also, how are you really? And you don't have to handle it alone. And I noticed you seemed off this week. It is also the hard conversations, the moments when you stop saying, I'm fine, and say the true thing instead. That is the English that matters most. I'll be back next Monday. New story, new hour. Another person, another moment, another hour of living in English. Until then, if someone asks how you are, pause, think, and say the truer thing, even if it is just, I've had a difficult week, or I'm carrying something right now, or I'm not fine, but thank you for asking. These are small sentences. They can change the whole direction of a day. Try the true answer, just once. This is Emma from Speak English Daily. Good night, wherever you are.